I worked 3 jobs just to save up enough money to finally buy a home for me and my husband so we can start a family. And then all of a sudden, his entitled sister, she just thinks that she's entitled to the house, and he agrees with her. Some people are just so spineless that they're happy to suck in others' blood shamelessly. They don't care about their image because they have no self-respect. The same is in the case with my sister-in-law, Linda. Let me give you a brief background on myself. I'm 38, female, and I've been married to Luke for about 10 years. I'm a chef at a restaurant. I give cooking lessons at a culinary institute in the morning, and then I take catering orders on weekends. So yeah, I've been juggling 3 jobs for the last 10 years, along with taking care of my 2 baby boys. They're age 6 and 4. I'm not separated from my husband, nor is he jobless. Whenever I mention my 3 jobs, people usually just conclude that either I'm divorced or my husband is a bum. It's neither of those situations, I promise. My husband, Luke, works in sales and has a decent income. Of course, living downtown in one of the most expensive cities and raising 2 kids means even a decent income is insufficient. Well, in my case, the thing is, ever since I got married, I wanted my own house for myself and my family. I know most girls look for a man who already owns a house, but in my case, I never met that criteria. For me, it was more about love and respect that mattered the most. Luke had a family home where his parents were staying, and he was working hard to get another one for himself, so I just joined his mission to get our own house. I had only one job as a chef back then. After our marriage, I realized that the 2 people's incomes could only provide us with a basic lifestyle, not the house. Since my shift started at noon, I joined the Culinary Institute to give cooking lessons in the morning. Luke and I opened a savings account to put aside our savings for the house. Gradually, as everyone got to know what I was, a chef, and tried the food prepared at our parties and gatherings, people started approaching me to ask if I could do catering for them at their events. With much hesitation, I started my catering services as a side hustle, a bit of money for the weekends. Initially, after our marriage, we thought that we would buy a house before planning a baby. But when 3 years passed and we were behind our savings target, we decided to start our family and meanwhile work on getting a home. In our 4th year of marriage, my older son was born. His arrival made me determine that we needed a house because our apartment was tiny. The complex had no other facilities like a playground or a swimming pool, and yes, we wanted a house with a lawn and a backyard for our children to play and for us to relax. I know, it's a little ambitious, but that's why we worked so hard for it. But with the birth of our son, we saw a setback. The income from our main jobs was all consumed household expenses. Hence, we were left just with my 2 side hustle for savings. But we did not give up. We saved bit by bit and lived as frugally as possible, and finally, a year ago, we found a house within our budget and with the amenities we were looking for. It's an old house where an elderly couple used to live, but after they passed away, their 2 children sold the house to get the money and divided amongst themselves as they both settled in a different country. Although, we got the house at a discount because they were in a hurry to sell it, and we did negotiate really hard. The house was old and needed a bit of fixing-upping. It took us over a year to renovate the house because we had limited funding. All of our savings went into buying it, and of course, we had to take out additional loans for the house and renovation. Hence, it took us this long. By the way, 4 years ago, I was blessed with another boy, and now we're a family of 4. I can't wait to move into our new home. Although it took us 10 long years to finally buy our dream house, it was all worth it. The house is exactly the same as what I've always dreamt of. It has 5 bedrooms, a huge living room, and a dining area. The highlight of the house is that it has a front lawn and a backyard with a swimming pool. The swimming pool was damaged because the elderly couple did not maintain it, but the lawn and the backyard was just so beautiful. While we were excited about our new house, someone was not happy and was eyeing it. It was my sister, Linda. The thing is that after my marriage, Luke and I used to talk about savings a lot and getting our own house, but Luke's family, especially his mother and sister, used to mock us and roll their eyes. It's hurtful when your family ridicules your dreams. So I stopped talking about it, and Luke never noticed their mean behavior, nor did I bring up this small talk with him. I was too busy working on my dream home. Eventually, when we stopped talking about it, my in-laws thought that we had given up our owning of a house, as most people downtown give up on this dream. However, when we finally booked the house, it took them by surprise, and my relationship with my in-laws was very neutral. Neither did we bond nor did we fight. It's probably because we don't meet often, just a few times a year. You see, Luke would go visit them whenever he pleased, but he never forced me to go with. And anyways, coming to the current situation and the reason for this post. Our house is almost ready, and we're supposed to move in just a few weeks, but last month Linda visited us with flowers and a bottle of wine. It was pretty surprising because in our 10 years of marriage, this was the first time she's brought us anything. When I asked her about the sudden gift, she said that they were for the good wishes of the house. Well, I prepared some food for Linda and her 2 children, and her visit turned out to be a mini party for our children. Her 2 and my 2, and when we settled down after dinner, Linda told us her actual motive for paying us a sweet surprise visit. So the thing is, Linda is pregnant, and during the scan it was detected that she's going to have a triplet. Now, she already has 2 kids. After she delivers her triplets, it's going to be 5. She currently lives in a 2-bedroom apartment, which is pretty manageable for a family of 4, right? But it would be way too cramped for a family of 7. Hence, she's looking for a big house. Good for her, right? Oh no, she's looking for my house. She wants us to give her the house because she needs it more than us. And does anyone here see any logic in her demands? No, right? Yeah, I know. Well, my mind went blank for a moment. I could not play my senses on how she could really ask us for the house. Luke also sat there a bit perplexed. No, she did not mention anything about buying it. To make sure I heard her correctly, I asked her, do you want our house? You mean the new one? Do you want to buy it? Sorry, I don't get you. She chuckled at my question and said, Oh, silly me. Why do I need to buy the house, which is my brother's? I can simply live there, right, Lukey? Luke responded almost instinctively, yeah, Linda, of course. That's your house, too. I just could not wrap my head around the conversation. My face was flustered and with anxiety on it. It was evident that I clearly did not like it. Luke saw my face and he sensed the upcoming horror. Linda was just so insensitive that she did not even give us time to think about it. Instead, she hugged Luke and thanked him for his kind gesture of giving her the house. I left the brother and sister duo to hug it out and went to the kitchen to clean up the mess. She left the house soon after that, but she did not bother to say goodbye to me. She just yelled bye from the front door while I was still in the kitchen. I too did not go out to see her. It's pretty evident to both of us that we both hate each other. As soon as she left, I asked the kids to go to their rooms and called Luke over to my side. I won't lie that I was calm. I shouted at Luke about how he even thought of giving the house to Linda when it was we. More specifically, it was I who worked so dang hard. Day and night, saving penny by penny, stacking up dimes to buy our dream home. And he gave it away in just a blink of an eye. I made it very clear that I was not going to give my house to Linda as a charity. In order to calm me down, he said it's getting late and we could discuss the topic later, so we went to sleep. I was so furious that I was not able to sleep the whole night. Although I was adamant about not letting Linda get my house, I was afraid that it might ruin my marriage. Whatever the consequences, I was ready to face it. The next week, Luke did not mention anything about the house. I should have felt happy that he was convinced of not giving the home, but deep down I knew it was not the case. After a week, Linda came by to visit us again. This time she came with my mother and without her children. Oh man. I knew what was going to happen. Luke was not home. I was too furious and restless to hold myself back and wait for Luke to join. So, I immediately jumped into the topic. I told Linda I'm sorry, but I could not give away my house to her because I'd literally poured out my sweat and blood for the last 10 years. Linda and my mother-in-law turned into their true self. They said the house was not just mine, it was of Luke as well. And he had already promised Linda the house, and I said, well, yeah, likewise. The house is not only Luke's alone. He can make a decision alone. No. They reasoned that I was having 2 kids where Linda was going to have 5, so she was the one who deserved the house. I told them that Linda's kids are not my problem. I've worked hard so that my children can enjoy these amenities. If Linda and her husband also wanted a similar upcoming for their children, they would have to work hard for it like everybody else. They labeled me selfish, materialistic, insensitive, and whatnot. Luke came from his walk just when our verbal fight was at its peak. Instead of listening to both sides, he jumped to the conclusion that it must have been I who triggered the situation. His mother and sister also added to the fire, saying that they had just visited me to say hello, and it was I who started the topic of the house. I made the final announcement that under no circumstances I was going to give away my house. I raced to my room and bolted for the door. After a couple of hours, Luke knocked on the door. And when I opened it, he was different. He was cheerful, smiles on his face. He asked me to calm down so that we could talk. This time, I thought of listening to him before jumping to conclusions, and he said that Linda's husband was not well off financially, so there's no way they could afford a house like us. And living with 5 kids in a 2-bedroom, I mean, come on, that's pathetic. He said that his parents were planning to move to their countryside farm for retirement in the next 2 years, so his family would be giving Linda, which is a 3-bedroom house, and he asked me if we could just let Linda stay in our house 2 years, that's it, until she gets the ancestral home. I logically countered him in that case. Why don't his parents exchange their house with Linda's right away? They could move into Linda's 2-bedroom, and she could move into her parents' 3-bedroom house. Why do we need to sacrifice? Well, at this point, he gets agitated, but took a deep breath. And he said that his parents' house was renovated with a stair lift and other elderly-friendly equipment which was not present at Linda's home. I wanted to smack my head at his logic. I mean, Linda's apartment had no stairs, so why would it be a problem? He said that the building lift did not work most of the time and her apartment was on the 6th floor, so clearly they could not climb 6 stairs. I gave up on discussing it with logic and I just simply put my foot down. I did. Well, it's been 2 weeks since that discussion, and Luke has been subtly trying to convince me to be the bigger person and give the house to Linda for a couple of years, because her 5 children need a large house. Although, I don't want to give up my house. Sometimes I drift towards Luke's proposal of leasing her for 2 years. Also, I'm afraid this might distance Luke from me, and I really don't want my marriage to suffer. Sometimes I'm also suspicious that this 2-year thing is just a scam, and once Linda enters my house, she's not going to leave. Does anyone have any advice on how to protect my home? Update number 1. Funny enough, a lot of people commented that I cannot save my house or my husband. It's either one or the other. Well, let's see. After the conversation with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law that evening, followed by the discussion with Luke, where he asked me if we could let Linda live in our new house for 2 years, for the next few weeks. We subtly kept convincing me, and he did everything to keep me happy. He came home on time, did my share of the household chores, and helped me in the catering business, which he had never done before. However, when he was unable to convince me through his sweetness, he changed his mode to bitterness, and he started to throw these tantrums. The shift was not overnight, it was gradual, and when he was helping me, or rather overdoing his sweetness, I used to assert that I was not going to change my mind with his bribery. So, Gradually, he stopped helping me and started coming home late and did not even do his share of household chores. He became a complete rebel. I tolerated him as long as I could, but when his narcissism reached its peak, I unleashed my frustration. Usually, Luke is the kind of person who acknowledges his mistakes, even if he doesn't really say sorry. He remains quiet when I burst out. He lets me calm down and does not trigger the argument at all. But this time, he was different. He turned defensive. He said it was also his house and he too had to have a say in the decision. He empathized that he had also put his money into the home. Usually, I'm not the person who heaps favor on someone, but this time I made him realize that the income from our main job was utilized for our household expenses. This house was solely purchased because I was juggling 2 other jobs apart from the day job. So it was I who should be able to make the decision here. I don't know why Luke is just not able to understand that our 2 kids also need a home. And they've already been eagerly waiting to move in there, and not only have we worked our butts off for the last decade and lived frugally, no vacations, but our children have also sacrificed and compromised a lot. We've never taken them on a decent vacation. We barely take them to the amusement park, and they always get an average version of the games they demand. They also feel bad when their friends post pictures of their exotic vacations or expensive video games, and I've always felt bad for denying their demands, and by God's grace, my children have, most of the time, understood that we are doing this for a better future. And now, Luke does not care about all these emotions or all these sacrifices that we have made for all these years. All he cares about is his selfish, greedy sister. My marriage went downhill as Luke's behavior in the house kept deteriorating. At one point, my older son had to tell him he did not want Aunt Linda to get their new house, but Luke did not budge. Yesterday, he threatened that if I did not give the house to Linda, he would sell the house as the co-owner of the home. He also said that if I obstructed the sale of the house, he would not hesitate to drag me to court. Now, the thing is, I really don't know much about the rules and regulations around housing properties co-owned by husband and wife. Additionally, I don't have the money to fight a court case. But I really want to save my house. I need some legal advisement here. Please, guys, help me. Update number 2. I'll start by thanking the lawyers and advisors who reached out to me to help. I feel so grateful to you. I know a lot of you have commented that I should first get a divorce from Luke. For the time being, I've kept this idea at the back of my mind because right now, my primary concern is safeguarding my house. As I mentioned in the first post, the house was under renovation and we were supposed to move in there in the following weeks, right? So, the date is next week when we were supposed to move into our house. It was supposed to be happy, a precious day for us. But thanks to their narcissistic father, it turned out to be a disaster. One of the lawyers from this community advised that I should not leave the house vacant because if Linda had occupied it before, it would have been an altogether different hassle to kick her out. So, while some of the work is still going on, like the window repair, etc., I packed all the essential stuff for myself and my children, and we hurried up and moved into our new house today while Luke was in the office. When Luke returned home after work and did not find the children or some of our stuff, he called me, and I told him that we've already moved into our new house and he can join us, if he wants. Well, he got a little agitated. He arrived within 20 minutes and I was prepared for his anger and yelling, but he did not do any of those things. He just insisted that we leave the house, and he said that since the renovations are still in progress, it's not safe for us to stay there. I did not buy his logic. I told him up front that I was not moving out. You will not believe what happened next. Within 10 minutes of Luke's arrival, Linda arrived with her 2 children and all her household stuff. I mean furniture loaded in the truck. I was sure that Linda would have indeed broken into my new house if, well, seems like they've planned it before. It was just impossible to pack all the belongings, load her furniture, and arrive in a mere 30 minutes. She was definitely shocked to find me there. She started cursing me and calling me names, and I too gave it back to her. The situation got so bad that I had to call the police before the neighbors did. Within 10 minutes, the police arrived in the van. Linda and Luke tried to manipulate the officers by portraying me as a trespasser who had barged into the house. I didn't say anything because, well, I didn't need to. I had the papers. We kept all our important documents in the bank locker, but the day that I took out the house documents because I felt I might need them, after listening to them, the officers approached me and politely asked me to leave. Well, then I showed them the papers and Luke was shocked to see that I've already taken out the documents. They both started shouting at the documents saying it was fake. So the officers asked them to show the original papers then, which they didn't have. The police asked them to leave because it was already dark and I was a single woman with 2 children. Luke changed his plate and said that he was my husband. The officer asked him to show proof of that, and they asked me if I felt threatened by Luke's presence because they have been seen yelling and shouting at me. I narrated the story in brief, and they warned Linda of dire consequences if she even tried to come back near the house. They asked me to go ahead, get a restraining order against Linda the next day. Well, they also asked Luke to file a court case if he had any objections or wanted to sell off the property. Luke and Linda left the premises, but it was a big house, and I felt afraid and threatened to spend the night there. The police officers sensed it and said that they would be patrolling our area, so if I had the slightest fear, I should just call them, and they would arrive in no time. They had also taken Luke's details and threatened him that if he tries to harm us in any way, he would not be spared. Well, guys, it's 2 a.m. when I'm making this update, and I'm just not able to sleep. I'm scared of what's going to happen next. But I just wanted to post this today so that if anything happens to me, you guys would know. I know, I'm sounding cynical, but I'm really terrified. You guys were right. Maybe I'm on the verge of losing my husband, but I'm glad I chose the house. Update number 3. Hey you guys, I know you've just been waiting for an update, especially my last post where I sounded like a hostage who was just about to be killed. So the next morning, I woke up to a loud banging on my door. Since I slept very late, almost until dawn, I was sleepy. I opened the door to find my front lawn had been vandalized. The backyard with a swimming pool, which was just repaired a few days ago, was destroyed. The CCTV camera was damaged, and I think that would be the first one to be broken to avoid anything getting recorded. And window panes, front lights were all destroyed. While I stepped out of the lawn, I saw Linda peeping from the next lane, smirking and mocking me like a psycho. I immediately rushed inside the house and locked the door. I called the police and told them everything. When the police arrived, they could not find Linda on the next street, and she might have left by then, obviously. She had smartly damaged the CCTV first, so nothing could be recorded. But the street camera, I guess she forgot about that. It caught her entering the premises and leaving it, and my neighbor's camera also partially captured her, which was enough to prove my case. Also, the officers from last night's patrol gave their statements against Linda. So, she was charged heavily for vandalizing our house and torturing us. She pleaded with me in court to waive the amounts, but in, well, all, I did not agree. Even Luke tried to intervene and convince me to waive her penalty, but I threatened him with divorce. She backed off. Linda has agreed to pay in installments, and I agreed to that because paying that much money up front is also an extreme situation for her, but I can't let go of my hard-earned money. While the court proceedings were still on, Luke came to our new house and apologized to me and my older son for his mistakes. He said that he was simply manipulated by his sister and mother, hence he did all of those things. Well, it's been about a month, guys, since we moved into our new house. Luke has returned to his usual self and is getting the house repaired, and I have warned him that next time he decides to choose his family over his own children, that will be it. I hope everything goes smoothly from now on. Anyways, thank you guys for all the support. So this Linda is completely out of her mind, vandalizing a house, thinking that she's entitled to a place that's clearly not hers. But I think the floor mat of the story, aka Luke, what was his deal? I mean, everything that was happening in the story was, he was just okay with his sister ruining his marriage. And OP did not deserve that. She was working 3 jobs. She put down the majority of the money for the house. I just don't understand where this entitlement came from and why her husband wasn't standing up for her. Anyways, I do want to hear from you guys. What do you think about this story? Here's the question. If you were in OP's position, how would you have handled this? What would you have done differently? Drop your comments downstairs. Guys, thank you for joining me on today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want daily videos, all you gotta do, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!